Hi all. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all back to this moment to learn about and think about solution-focused brief therapy that we started working on a couple of weeks ago. I will talk you through the slides, the activities that are included. Some of you have already done, and some of you will hopefully enjoy doing them. You can stop the video at the moment where we see the slide about the activity and refer to your handouts and do the appropriate activity at the time. My name's Gemma Clark, and I'm one of the therapists at the Michael Palin Centre, and I'm delivering this talk on behalf of the Michael Palin Centre and Ali Burkes, who is one of our other therapists at the centre. So this course, this is just a plea really to keep the resources within your team. So, enjoy this video, enjoy using the resources with each other and with your clients, but please don't share them beyond that with other colleagues. Thank you. This is the Michael Palin Centre. You can see on the left-hand side, it's our building in central London. It's set in Farringdon, so if anyone is going to be travelling over to London at any point, that's where you can find us. Our patron is Michael Palin, hence the name of the centre, and we work with children and adults right from age 2 to late adulthood. And we do a range of individual therapy and group therapy, which may include, depending on the age of the group, a trip to a circus skills training. And we include parents as much as we can when we're working with children. So a little bit more about us. We provide specialist assessment and therapy. That's for the local population who live around the centre, but also we provide a tertiary service for children across the UK and can provide private therapy for children and families across the world. We have a really complete training program for speech and language therapists, and it's mostly online now. We're very happily going to have a face-to-face Palin parent-child interaction course in May, which is about, I think, our first face-to-face course since the pandemic. And otherwise, all of our courses are online because we found that we can, provide training for SLTs across the globe, which is so important for us as a centre to know that we're reaching far and wide. Our training includes kind of training per age. So we've got for the under 7s, which is the Palin PCI, primary school and secondary school training, so that our therapists can understand how to work with children and adolescents across the age ranges. And we also have a range of psychological courses that we train, solution-focused brief therapy being one of them. This is just a taster to bring you solution-focused brief therapy, and we do a 2-day course, which is a really full, interesting training. And also at the centre, we research into the nature of stammering and the effectiveness in therapy. So you may well have read some papers that have come out of the Michael Palin Centre. So we have a range of CPD for therapists. As I've said already, our courses for Palin PCI, parent-child interaction, we run an accreditation course, which includes not only the 2-day training course, but also 6 supervision sessions, and a bunch of portfolio tasks that you can do with your clients, so that as you're progressing as a therapist, you have a group of peers and an NPC therapist to take you through those first 6 months to a year of working in that way. We offer supervision, individual and in groups, and some therapists come to shadow us at the centre, either for our intensive courses, which are really intense, as the name suggests, and also in our day-to-day work at the centre. For UK clients and therapists, we also have a helpline where we offer advice and support for families and therapists. And I'll show you a photo of our website shortly, where we have some resources for families and for speech therapists, as well as teachers and education staff. So what matters to us as a centre? Well, our focus is broad. It's on confident communication and our clients participating and living their lives joyfully and fully, whether they stammer or whether they don't. We understand stammering holistically, so always we look at the big picture and help our clients and their families look at the whole child and that whole child within their whole environment. We understand stammering with the overt features, so what it sounds like, what it looks like for each individual, and everything that's going on underneath. So things that, we might not know unless people tell us about them, their thoughts and feelings about their stammering and what they might do behaviourally in order to cope with those thoughts and feelings and to cope with their stammering and the impact that it has on them day to day. We pay really full attention to the therapeutic relationship, and we'll be talking about that in this session, and believe that we need to put effort into building that relationship, as it's something that has an impact on the success of our therapy. We integrate a range of approaches according to the needs of the client and the family that we're working with, and we always, as much as possible, involve the family and wider system, so school, friends, partners, when we're working with a client. We focus on the positives and the strengths of the client and help them practice focusing on those things as well, because it's it's almost going against human nature. Very much we're programmed to look for threat. We're programmed to look for what's not working so that we can fix it, so that we can flee, keep ourselves safe. So, really helping our client focus on what their strengths are and what they can get out of situations which might be really difficult, is a real focus of ours. And of course, we are evidence-based as a centre. Here's the Palin model, the model that we use, the multifactorial model that we use to understand stammering. And that is at the core of Palin parent-child interaction. It's not a causative model of stammering, but it's a model that we use in order to really understand fully the picture for each individual child that we work with, what's going on for them physiologically, and how does that sit within their speech, motor, language and communication skills and their psychological or emotional tendencies or what's going on for them inside, and how does all that sit within the environment. We think about where the client is now and also where we can focus therapy on this model. We use it for stammering. I wonder what other client groups you work with, and if it could fit as a way for conceptualizing your client and conceptualizing where the next steps might take place. Here's our website. It's the Michael Palin Centre for Stammering.org, and it's got a whole bunch of resources available for you to use. Okay, so activity 1. This is an activity that you can do in pairs or in a 3, and you can take it in turns. One person will ask the question and listen, and the other person will be responding to the questions. And so the person who's asking the questions, please go through these questions with your colleague. So the first question is, describe, please, briefly a piece of work that you have done recently that you feel good about. Okay, the next question, after your colleague has talked for a while, what did you do that worked? Okay, allow them to answer, and then you can ask, what else? What else? What else? What else? Okay, so that what else is 4 times. So what we're asking them to do is to really focus on and think about what they did that worked in that instance. Then we're getting them to look deeper. What skills and qualities did you demonstrate in this piece of work? So we're really already helping your colleagues to find those strengths and those resources that they have that they might not think about every single day. And then the person who's been asking the questions and listening to their partner, please compliment your partner on what you've heard. If I were a colleague of yours, what I would appreciate about you is, okay, so make this really based on what your colleague has said and how they've come across in this short conversation that you've had. Okay, and then please swap roles. Okay, I wonder how that went. Do feel free to have a debrief about how it went, how it felt to ask the questions, and also how it felt to be the one who was asked to describe the activity, the piece of work. What do you make of that? Okay, so what are we going to cover? We're going to look at the principles of solution-focused brief therapy, and we'll go through the first therapy session in detail. And we're going to divide it up into sections. So we'll talk about the opening, the best hopes, preferred future, scaling, but it's actually all just one therapy session that we're going through together. And in part 3, we'll think about the therapist role as well. So, solution-focused brief therapy was developed in the 80s by Steve DeShazer and Insoo Kim Berg, who were family therapists. And nowadays it's used with a range of client groups and professionals from a variety of different backgrounds. So it's used in health settings, social care, and increasingly in business settings. It's used by speech and language therapists and has been used in the Michael Palin Centre since at least 2005, and it really is interwoven into everything that we do and talk about at the centre. And it's not just a way of talking, it's a way of being and a way of focusing that really fits with the work that we do at the Michael Palin Centre. In the UK, lots of the therapists who work at the Michael Palin Centre have done their training at Brief, which is based in London, quite close to the Michael Palin Centre actually. And we're quite big fans of Elliot Colley, who does a lot of puts a lot of information out on social media and delivers quite a lot of online training as well. So the principles behind solution-focused brief therapy. What we want to do is shift the focus of therapy from the problem towards the solution. So it's quite easy when we have a problem to turn it around, look at it, explore it, get to know it really, really well. And so actually in some cases that can be, all we see. So what we want to do is shift from getting to know that problem really, really well to looking beyond the problem and thinking, okay, well, in the absence of the problem, what's that like? What does the solution look like? We want to see the child that we're working with, or client, and their parents as being more than their problem. Quite a few of the parents that we work with or speak to have said that the biggest thing that they've gained from therapy really is getting their child back, or being able to see their child again. As the focus on the stammering has been so enormous and so big for the child and for the parents that actually they've forgotten other facets of their child, and they start to see their child as a whole again. So that's what we try to do right from the first instance when we meet a client and their family. And what we want to do is to explore in detail the client's preferred future. We look for resources in the client rather than deficits. So they might have been exploring what they're not doing well enough, what things are difficult, and we help them flip their focus in order to help them find their resources and their strengths, rather than exploring those deficits that they may have been kind of polishing up for quite some time. We want to explore and help our clients explore what's already working for them. What is already going well? So in the midst of everything that is difficult, what exceptions are there to that difficult time? What instances are there when actually things are easy? And make those moments important to the client, to highlight them to the client. And we believe and treat the child or client and their parents as the expert in all aspects of their life. We might be the experts in stammering or language disorder, or whatever your speciality is, but actually they are the ones who are the experts in their life. So more guiding principles: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If there's stuff that the client is doing that is fine and they're happy with, let's not meddle with it. Once you know what works, do more of it. So we have a belief that the client will already be doing things that are helpful for them. So if they're doing helpful things, then keep doing it, and even doing a bit more. And if it doesn't work, don't do it again. Do something different. And I think lots of people fall into this trap. We keep on trying to solve a solution in a way that isn't helpful. And even though it's not helpful, actually we just do it again and again and again. So it's just kind of okay, is that working for you? Well, let's find something different for you to do instead. Change is regarded as inevitable. So thinking about Buddhist principles, change is constant, it's inevitable, So let's make it in the direction that we would like it to go in. And from the family therapy lens, we think about small changes in one area of a system can lead to ripples in the whole system or across the whole pond. So a small change from one element can make changes across the whole ecosystem of a pond that we're talking about in this moment. So if the child starts to do something different, then they will start naturally to do other things differently as well. And if the parents do something different, then they will do more things different than they first think they're doing. And that will then influence more elements of the household. Each session is viewed as potentially the last. So the focus here is on brief. You might have a conversation where your client has flipped their focus and suddenly can see, okay, well, this is what I need to do in order to move forward, in order to move towards my solution. Actually, I'm just going to keep on going with this. So you may not need to see your client again. And the solution might not necessarily be related to the problem. So the problem may be stammering. And, the first thing that parents might expect us to do is work here on teaching the child to do something different with their speech motor mechanism, but actually something as far related as working with speech or working on working on sleep or working on praise might be something that's really an active ingredient of therapy and moving towards the solution. And there's a belief that no problem happens all the time. There's always going to be an exception. So to give you a stammering example, there might be moments where the child talks with just one parent at a time, and actually they're way more fluent. There may be, if they stammer on, say, 20% of their syllables, actually that means that they're not stammering on 80%. So their body already knows fluency. Okay, so we're flipping the focus to when the problem doesn't happen. Okay, so let's think about the first therapy session. Here's the structure. We'll start with the opening and problem-free talk, contracting, which is where we establish the best hopes between the therapist and the client. And as therapists, we help and facilitate the client to describe their preferred future. We help them by identifying instances of success that are already occurring through asking them to fill in a scale, which we'll go into in more detail, and to help them find exceptions to the problem. Then after we've done all that, we compliment our client and we end the session. So thinking about using solution-focused brief therapy with children and young people, it's helpful to use the language appropriate to their language and their developmental level, as with all clients that we work with. Don't be afraid to be creative. Play, use different materials, books, paper, hand puppets, magic wands. The more fun you can make it and playful you can make it, the more younger children will be able to tap into that creative side of themselves. And remember that the younger children and older children as well might listen better and think more freely if they're keeping their hands busy with drawing, with fidgets, with Play-Doh, and include parents and carers. because then they can hear the conversations that you're having with your client, and they can generate their best hopes and their preferred futures as well. So at the beginning, you start off with some problem-free talk to build your connection. You're focusing on the strengths of your client. And so you can ask questions like, what do you like doing? What are your interests? And we really want to hear about the thing that they really love. So if you're getting your client talking about Pokemon and the cards that they've got and what they know about those Pokemon, you're getting them in a resourceful state. If your client is really good at sport, okay, so tell me about that sport. What skills do you need to be good at that sport? And what do you have to know in order to do that? And what does that tell you about you, the fact that you can do that sport to a really high level? Okay, so if we get our clients talking about these things that they're passionate about already, we're starting the session from a resourceful state. And it also gives us a window into their resources that we can then help them transfer across from the situation where they do feel powerful and resourceful into the moment where they are feeling that things are too difficult. And then we move on to contracting, establishing the best hopes. So these are some questions. What are your best hopes from today? What are your best hopes from our talking together or from the therapy that we're going to do together? Notice in each of those questions the use of from. That carries a suggestion of starting now and moving forward rather than just for this discrete amount of time. When we work with children and families at the Michael Palin Centre, we talk first of all with the child or young person, and hopefully the child will be happy for the parents to be in the session listening. And then we have the same solution-focused conversation with the parent, with the young person listening. If the young person doesn't want their parent in the session with them, we absolutely respect that, and then find a way to feed back the information from the young person's conversation to the parent. We might agree with them that the young person will feed it back to them themselves, or that we can share the brief scale with the parents, or that the therapist feeds back the key points, whatever is agreed with the young person. So we use this question to help our clients turn problems into hopes. Here are some questions. So what are your best hopes from talking together? When that question is asked, our clients often tell us what they don't want. I want to stop stammering. I won't be feeling so worried. Okay, so that's okay. It's fine for them to start with that. And even though we want to kind of shift them towards the solution, it's really important for us to not be scared of the problem and to acknowledge the problem when they bring it up in the session. Okay. And in order to do that, you can acknowledge the problem. Okay, I can really understand that you want to stop stammering. And instead of stammering, how would you like your speech to be? Okay. And so instead allows us to start building the solved state. This is a really nice phrase. It's a key word to bridge between problem and solution, or a linguistic doorway that invites clients who have answered with a negation to walk right into the description of the solution. Okay, so, for them, they may have to acknowledge and have the problem heard in order for them to find the solution. And what we want is for them to tell us in the affirmative what they want. If they always tell us what they don't want, then they always have to reconnect with the problem in order to move forward towards the solution. Okay, so if I tell you to don't think about pink elephants, what do you have to think about in order not to think about it? Okay, so instead of stuttering, what would you like to be doing? Instead of feeling worried, how would you like to feel? And in this way, we help them to turn problems into hopes. Okay, so I'd like to be fluent. So your best hopes from our talking together is to talk more fluently. I want to feel more confident about talking. So your best hopes from our talking together is to feel more confident about your talking. And notice that I'm repeating back the precise words that the client has said. I'm not paraphrasing them or using an approximation. I'm repeating back exactly what I've heard, because those are the words that are meaningful for the client. And those are the words that will really chime for them. And of course, some of our clients might not know what they want. As I said right at the beginning, we do tend to spend a lot of time examining our problems in great depth, so they might not know what they want instead of that problem. And so if their initial response is, I don't know, say, of course. Yeah, it's hard to know, isn't it? Especially when you've been thinking about this problem for such a long time. And if you did know, I wonder what those hopes would be. Pausing can be really powerful in this moment, and just using minimal responses. And what will tell you that this has been helpful? I wonder what you're hoping it will lead to. How will you know that it hasn't been a waste of time? Okay, you might also help them find a different perspective. If they've said, oh, I don't know, and you've tried the first couple of questions that I read out for you, helping them step into their friend's shoes or parents' shoes, they will see themselves and therefore the problem from a slightly different angle. How will your friends know that it hasn't been a waste of time? What do you think your teachers or parents' best hopes are from this? What will they need to do, or what will they need to see you doing in order for them to, get off your back about this problem that they're seeing? And you can also make it more tentative. And if you were to know, what do you think your best hopes might be? Kind of just loosening it up a little bit. So it's time for us to help our clients generate their preferred future. So first of all, they talk about their best hopes. And then we want to really get some detail and broaden their preferred future. So we're zooming in for detail and panning out for breadth of preferred future. We want them to describe in detail how they will know when their best hopes are realised. And for young children, again, use props, use imaginary figures, use a crystal ball, use magic. The more creative, the better. Drawing will help them. Role play, so they might demonstrate some of their preferred future. They might act out being sensible in school. They might use some sort of hat or fancy dress item in order to show their best self, or symbolize their best self. And they also might involve a figure or an image like a brave lion or a confident superhero that will kind of accompany them in that preferred future. So in order to elaborate, help them describe the preferred future, there's a couple of questions. The miracle question. Suppose one night while you're asleep there was a miracle and this problem was solved. How would you know what would be different? Okay. And so then the client needs to walk through and think, okay, well, how would I know things were different? What would be happening? What would I be doing differently? So another way into this preferred future is the tomorrow question. Let's imagine you wake up tomorrow and all your best hopes are achieved. What do you begin to notice? And that really keeps it concrete for our clients. Well, I wake up in the morning and I go to breakfast, and actually I've got quite a spring in my step because I'm feeling good about myself. I chat to my mum over the breakfast table and actually I'm saying a bit more. Okay, so already they're kind of rehearsing and in some ways living already the preferred future just by describing it. So our brains actually don't know what's a real experience and what is an imaginary experience. So just helping them walk through the preferred future, they will already live it once. And so the step to doing it in real life isn't so huge. And the more detailed, the better, because they'll be saying things like, I'll be talking a bit more, I'll be having a bit more energy, I'll be, what else might they come up with? I'll be chatting more to my brother, I'll be enjoying, I'll be enjoying the thought of talking to my friends. Okay, so actually then the solution to the problem isn't just the one desired best hope. It's actually, a lot more than that. It's talking more, talking to more people, feeling more joyful. So actually the ability to spot those successes will become much easier. And when your client is describing the preferred future, you want it to be positive. So it's what they want rather than describing what they don't want, just as we're talking about earlier. We want them to talk about concrete and observable things. It needs to be realistic. It's not that suddenly they're going to be a massive pop star, singing in massive stadium gigs. It's how will their day-to-day look when the solution is in place. And one of my clients really commented that actually her preferred future wasn't so different. She imagined herself sitting, eating pizza with her parents. So it was something that she was already doing, but just the nuances around it were different. And that made her really notice that actually it felt way more manageable. It needs to be detailed. So that the client has all these tiny details that they can start noticing that will tell them that they're going in the direction they want to go into. It needs to be multi-perspective, so it needs to be from the client's own perspective and from the perspective of people around them. so their friends, their parents, the family dog, and it needs to be interactional. Okay, so when your mum sees you doing that, what will she do differently? Aha, okay. And when she starts doing that, what will you then do in response to that? So it takes into the account the system around your client and what impact the client has on these systems and what impact the systems will then have on the client. So questions might include, what's the first thing you will notice? What will you be doing differently? What else? What else? What else? Who else will notice that you're doing something different? How might they respond? And if they do that or they did that, how would you respond to them? What will your dog or cat notice? And to get a kind of impersonal perspective, you can ask, imagine that your school was in a reality TV show and you were filmed and came across as the confident boy you would like to be. If you watched that show, list 10 things that would tell you or tell us that this was you at your most confident in school. And when that confident version of you arrives in school, what will you notice? Imagine that over the next few days, you yourself are at your very best. List 30 ways you'll know. And notice that that's just things that they will notice rather than a to-do list of things that they have to do in order to be at their very best. Okay, so please take a moment to find activity 2, where you will explore the best hopes and preferred future with your colleague. So please do this in pairs or in a 3, and one of you will have the questions and ask the questions of your colleague with a real problem, please. I think maybe the sheet that I sent out to you asks you to do a role play, but I think actually it's more interesting for you to do this on a real problem or a real thing that's a challenge for you at the moment. Of course, know that you're with a colleague at work, so please keep the problem manageable and appropriate for this setting, and that it can be contained within the 10 or 15 minutes that you're going to be talking about it. So, you know, I wouldn't recommend doing a problem that's really, really tough for you to deal with. Sometimes quite practical things like, I don't know, keeping your desk tidy or being able to get your reports out on time or something at home. And then once you've done it one way, please compliment each other. So the one who's asking the questions can compliment the strengths that they've noticed in their client, and the other way round, the client can compliment the colleague as to how they've asked the question and something about their manner. Okay, so please, each of you compliment each other and debrief. How was it for each of you? What did you learn? What did you notice? And what did you make of that? Okay. So now we have to help our clients notice the instances of success that are already happening. Okay. And we're helping them to find the exceptions to the problem. Okay, so we know that there are times when the problem will happen less or is completely absent. And we want to help our clients find those instances which actually already exist, where the best hopes already exist, even though maybe they haven't even spotted them yet. And we can use the word suppose. And that helps us kind of step forward into the hopes. Suppose. And for this exception finding, we start with a scale. So we place the best hopes at number 10, and 0 is the opposite of the very best hopes. So you might have a line already printed on a page, or you can draw a line. And you can say where 10 is your very best hopes and 0 is the opposite of that. Where do you see yourself now? Or where do you see things now? And your client can mark a little mark on the line wherever they see themselves. And what we're interested in is the little space on the line between the 0 and where they put that mark. Okay, so how come you're already at 6 and not at 0? Okay, and I understand that things are really tough for you. So how come you're actually at 2 rather than at -2? Okay, so already, even if they're low down on the scale, we want to tap into the resources and the knowledge and the skills that they already have. And if someone's really low down on the scale, like at 0 or 2, that might just be coping. Okay, wow, things are really tough for you. How is it you're coping when things are so tough? Okay, so, really making it work for them so that they can tap into their resources. And then after you've explored their knowledge, skills, resources, that have them all the way up to where they already are, then we want to help them identify the next small signs of change. What will you be doing that will tell you that you have moved up 1 point up the scale or half a point up the scale? What will be happening then that will tell you that you've moved up half a point? Because of course the big hopes, we want a really broad positive picture, and this helps them to break down the teeny tiny things that they might see along the way, and of course they might start seeing the small things and also the big things. If you're scaling with younger children, again, be creative, use numbers, pictures, characters, shapes, and use their physicality, use their bodies, use staircases, use pieces of paper set out in as stepping stones. We've got a striped carpet at the Michael Palin Centre, which handily has 10 different coloured stripes. It's from IKEA. So, that is a really lovely scale with each of the numbers. They can hop from one colour to the next. And then offer an invitation for your client to notice what's going well. Okay, so this task will help them to shift their focus of attention, rather than thinking, I'll give another stammering example, rather than noticing every time they stammered in class, the focus will be shifted to, okay, well, notice every time actually you put up your hand in class when maybe you didn't really feel like it so much, but you thought you'd give it a go. Notice times when you were brave. Notice times when you were focusing on listening to your friends rather than focusing inwardly and thinking about your stammering. Okay, so just setting the noticing task will help broaden the perception and the perceptual field of your client and their parents. So please go to your handouts and continue with your partner. So hopefully you're still with the same person, and carry on with the same problem that you've already started, or challenge that you've started working on. Now introduce the scale. Okay, so remember your very best hopes are at number 10. 0 is the opposite of that. Where are things now? So your partner puts a mark on the line. Then you're investigating that area between 0 and whatever their number is. How come you're all the way up at 3, 4, 5, and not at 0? What does that say about you? Tell me more about that. What else? What else? And how will you know when you start to move 1 point further up the scale? Again, after you've done that activity, please compliment each other. Client, what did you notice about your colleague's therapeutic skills? The person who is asking the question, what resources did you see in your client? Compliment them on those. And a solution focused session finishes with compliments. Okay. You tell the client what you've noticed, what strengths they've noticed. You help them notice what strengths they have. Okay. And a really nice question is there anything I forgot to ask? Is there anything that I missed? So you're giving them the lead. And you also want to know, would you like to meet again? And if so, when? So in that, there's a suggestion that actually this session may well be enough. You know, you've got this. We might do a summary of the session for the client, and acknowledge how tough their problem is, validate what they're already doing, and use their words. What particular phrases did they use or have they used in order to describe their own strengths and qualities? Pick up on those and use them to your client. Those are the ones that will really chime for them, and invite them to notice what's going well in the week to come. I want to introduce you to some really nice strengths cards that we use at the Michael Palin Centre. They're published by St Luke's and John Beacon, and we've got them for slightly different age ranges. They're a pack of cards with different qualities, human qualities, and we use them in a range of ways at the Michael Palin Centre for clients to self-compliment and for clients to compliment to each other within families, and for us therapists to compliment our clients in a really concrete way. So this is for the slightly younger children. Okay, so us as therapists, what's our role in solution-focused brief therapy? Well, it's not about us. Okay, we should be as invisible as possible and leave no footprints. Okay, it's the clients who are doing the finding the solutions and doing the work. We're just their guides, and we're asking the questions. And if we ask a good question, then it will get their brains working and we will be invisible. So the client is the one in the driving seat, and we help kind of guide them by showing appreciative curiosity. What a lovely phrase. Really interested in their ideas and curious about their ideas, because whatever they say and whatever they come up with is going to be novel to us as human beings. So, enjoy that. And our stance is positive, respectful, and hopeful. and trusting, I would add, really trusting that the client has the resources in order to move forward and to listen out for those resources specifically. So we're building solutions rather than solving problems. And I love this quote from Elliot Connie: to ask questions that are useful to the client. A really good question is designed to turn on your brain and not your mouth. Okay. And we've spoken in the Michael Palin Centre about, do clients have to answer our questions in order for this to be a powerful therapy? And actually they don't. Just the very fact that we've asked the question will set their subconscious working on it. So even if the client hasn't been able to come up with anything in that moment, the very fact that they've been asked the question, they've heard the question, will start their brain on that process. And you might see your client looking up and around, which shows you that they're thinking and creating. So even if they don't say something out loud, they are already being impacted by the question, designed to move them towards a solution. And we need to leave them space for that. Space in time, so loads of pauses, and also kind of space, if you can be seated either side by side or at angles to each other with your client rather than right in front of them, actually they've got space to look and think and really access their own resourceful state. And we need to listen out for and amplify exceptions, so where their best hopes are already happening. Okay, so listen out for those things, because another human thinking pattern that we all do to some extent or another is to kind of deny the positives. If you notice something's going well, actually to make that less important than other things. Oh yeah, well, I did speak in class today, but sometimes I do just speak in class. Or yes, I did give my whole presentation, but everyone had to give presentation, so I wasn't doing anything different to anyone else in the class. Okay, so really being able to help your clients appreciate the things that they do already and give them importance. We highlight signs of progress when our clients tell us about them, and always make sure there are opportunities to compliment our clients, and even more powerful, that they compliment themselves. A really nice question for that is, okay, wow, so you did XYZ. What does that tell you about you? Or what did it take for you to do that? What resources did you use in order to do that? And some people find this really hard, especially as we're in this business to help people, and I'm sure can come up with some really, really good ideas and solutions for our clients' problems. Actually, don't be tempted to give advice. It's really tempting if you can see the way through, but actually, your way of solving the problem will not be the same as your client's way of solving the problem. And the one that will be most manageable, easy, effective for them is one that they've generated themselves. Okay. So it's used, solution focused brief therapy is used a lot actually in the UK, in speech and language therapy. It's used throughout Palin PCI in the 2020 edition of the manual, and I would say it's used throughout the day at the Michael Palin Centre. There's a really lovely residential programme in the UK in Swindon, and it's run by the Swindon Fluency Trust. And in recent years, that's kind of shifted their focus into a more solution-focused way of working. There's a trial for aphasia using a solution-focused approach, and George Forlas in Greece has used it for his programme. So there are a few papers which are in the what are they called? The references at the end of these slides. So do have a look. These are the ones that are particularly written by therapists at the Michael Palin Centre. So what are the benefits of using solution-focused brief therapy? Well, it enables us to work collaboratively, and it allows us to develop a shared understanding with our clients and where it is they want to go. It broadens their perspective, so it shifts away from just the single problem, and so therefore kind of flipping the solution to be the opposite of that problem. It makes it much fuller and more compelling, which is a real amazing motivator for therapy. And it communicates a sense of hope, and it really shows that we expect for our clients to be making changes and for there to be exceptions, and it builds the client's sense of hope as well. We use quite a lot of writing in the brief scales, and acknowledging, from week to week, if you're seeing a client weekly and you're checking in on what's been going well, you can use some really nice written work in order for them to have a record of things that they can look back on, particularly if things are not going so well. And so they might have written evidence of their resources, their strengths, what they've achieved. And because our clients and their families are the ones finding their own solutions, actually it helps to develop their internal locus of control, and it builds their confidence. Okay, so activity 4, please review all the skills involved in using the solution-focused brief therapy approach. So if you took part in the training, you would have seen the videos, and I apologise for those of you who weren't able to come to the training, who haven't seen the videos, but within the activities, when you were working with your colleague, what skills did you and your colleague need when you were doing the solution-focused work? Those might be things like attentive listening, use of pauses, so those kind of therapeutic skills, the interaction skills that are so important for us as therapists. Okay, so list as many as you can. You might want to do this in a group or in pairs or threes, and then pick 2 that you already are doing really well, and pick 1 that you'd like to focus on developing or doing a bit more of. Okay, so in summary, solution-focused brief therapy is a way of thinking, a way of focusing. And if you use it enough, it's kind of a way of being as well, rather than just it being a set of techniques. It's an approach that can be incorporated into what you already do. So we already did a very full assessment with our clients and their parents, and actually we've added in some solution focused questions into the things that already exist. We can use solution focused therapy with a range of clients in a range of settings, and it helps our clients and their parents towards what they want, and particularly, you know, that joy and enjoyment of living and doing what they want to do, which is so important, rather than just focusing on removing the symptom that they've come to you with. Here are some websites for you to explore. And now it's your turn to think of your message in a bottle. What will you take away? What have you learned? What's been important for you? What will you go away and use? And here's the book that my lovely colleagues have written, Ali Burkes and Martha Jeffrey. So the focus is using solution-focused brief therapy with children or young people who stammer and their parents. So the examples in this book are of stammering, but actually I've been given a sneaky peek, and I think this book is highly readable, and can be applicable to lots of different client groups. So that's in press and will be published later on this year. So it's been a real pleasure spending this time with you. Thanks everybody for your attention, and really enjoy using this work moving forward. Thanks a lot. Bye everyone.